Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and with me Prashant Ruia, Director of Essar Capital from our studios at the India Today Business Today studio in Davos. Welcome. The sun is out, Prashant, and we're having a better day than yesterday in this regard. But you've been here.
Yes.
And the fact that you've been spending time here meeting a lot of people, the first question for today: how's the India story panning out this time round in Davos?
First of all, thank you, Siddharth. And this is certainly a lot better than the last time when it was really cold and it was early in the morning. So, but it's a beautiful day right now. And for me, Davos has been something which I've been coming to for more than 15 years. So, I've seen it evolve. And I can say, I think with confidence that the positioning which India has today and for this Davos has actually never been better. The general impression is that for sure amongst most people you meet is that all the levers which are working now, economic levers that is, are working in favor of India. It is easily one of the most favored investment destinations right now globally. And if you just look around what's happening in the world, whether it's in Europe or, I think US still is very good. But if you look around what's happening with China and Europe and other parts of Asia, then India just stands out. And I just feel that this is the first Davos in Amrit Kal, and it's really beckoning for the group here and the community here.
Prashant, what explains the resilience of Indian CEOs? And the reason I asked you this earlier today, we provided an exclusive view of a very detailed CEO survey. It's a global survey by PricewaterhouseCoopers. Over 4,400 odd Indian respondents. Right. 86% of them are optimistic about the prospects of the economy.
Right.
Only 44% of global CEOs are. What explains this difference and why this resilience?
I think India has been through a few years of slow growth, consolidation, if you will, and I think most corporate balance sheets are heavily delevered, and the opportunity to grow. I mean, to be honest, we have not seen significant capital investment in the country in the last 5-10 years, I would say. I think after 2016-17, most of the investments have been being made by government and public sector and all of that. And most of the latent capacity, surplus capacity which we had in manufacturing, most of that has got effectively taken away in terms of consumption. And every sector now is looking at a massive demand supply gap in terms of what India needs to manufacture or what we need to produce to meet the demand. I mean, we're growing, 7%, more than 7% a year GDP. I mean, all the numbers are known, and India really needs to invest massively to keep up with the growing consumer demand. The second big, obviously, there's a huge change taking place around energy transition, and that's a huge area because for the first time, India can actually really play a role in becoming a exporter of energy. For 50 years now, maybe more, India has always been a huge importer of energy. And this is really the first time with the new technology, with solar, with wind, with green hydrogen, with green ammonia, with all these new technologies which are coming in, we actually have a chance to compete globally. And so, it's a combination of many factors. Obviously, service sector remains very, very robust, very, very strong. And the other big thing which is changing is that India is becoming a favored destination for manufacturing, global supply chain. Given with what's happening with China, every major corporation wants to have a alternate base of manufacture, whether it's automotive, whether it's Apple, whether it's, you name it. And India is therefore that's another huge opportunity, not only for international companies, but for Indian companies to be that supply chain or to be part of that supply chain. So it's a combination of really many factors coming together.
Prashant, one of the things that, and you referred to this about the government doing the heavy lifting, and someone recently aggregated statistics and data and said that 4 or 5 of the largest groups in India are investing massive amounts across sectors, including the green energy space.
Right.
Does that really mean that this belief that the private sector is not investing after the down cycle, the banking down cycle that we saw, is that a wrong belief, or is this only in this one space where we are seeing massive significance, including from you?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think it would be unfair to say that private sector investment did not get dampened with what happened with the banking system, and it did slow many private sector companies or groups down. But I think that phase is largely past, and most people have addressed it. Most people have either delevered or they found solutions, and I think that going forward now, everybody is looking at how we can create new capacity, how can we build new technologies. There's a huge startup ecosystem which is now flourishing in India. So, I mean, I would say in the initial years, I mean, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, it had an impact and the government was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but I think that's past now.
Business moves in a cycle, economies move in cycles, and you've seen various cycles. What is different in this cycle? Because everywhere, including at Davos, there are foreign investors,
Right.
foreign companies who simply want to listen and buy into the India story. Seems like a fresh gold rush, Prashant.
No, look, I just think that if you look around India and all the economic parameters around India, we seem to be in a far more firmer footing. If you look at how India handled COVID, I mean, this part of the world, Europe, US was really badly affected. But India came out of COVID without significant growth in inflation, without currency depreciation, without all the things which people really were worried
and
about.
Look at what has happened in our immediate neighborhood also.
Exactly,
In economic terms.
absolutely. So India really handled that well, and that also was something which, frankly, other people were quite surprised with. How did this happen? Obviously, we handled the energy, the rise in energy crisis, the energy cost going up globally. We handled that very well. Of course, we took an independent view of the world, but that in the end, that seems to be the right view, and we've worked out.
There's no question of disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
And the government has explained that so many times. That
Absolutely. So if you just think about the steps and the actions which India has taken, it has stood out compared to what other people have done, and I think it's an opportunity for both Indian groups, Indian families, Indian entrepreneurs, Indian companies to invest, but it's also an opportunity for international companies to come into India and participate in the growth which we are expecting.
Absolutely. Last year when we spoke here, one of the key themes that we had spoken about is the fact that you had completed your deleveraging cycle, and a year has passed since then. For our viewers, what's the progress been since then? Because you clearly have done a massive cleanup, and now obviously people will look forward to hearing your views on how the green shoots are growing.
Well, it's been an eventful few years. I would say 3-4 years, but I think about maybe a couple of years back we completed most of the deleveraging cycle. So I think that's sort of certainly behind us. We've pivoted the group heavily within the sectors which we are. We've pivoted into future technologies, which are a little bit future centric, if you will. Green ecosystems which are getting developed, and around value accretion, value creation theme. I would say with those sort of broad themes, we have pivoted the group. We are looking at many opportunities and developed them in the last few years, which we are very excited about. As I said, it's if you look at the energy space, or if you look at the metals and mining space, infrastructure space, I mean, just take infrastructure for example. I mean, India is today, the government of India is actually investing more than 40 billion a year just from the budget alone in building new infrastructure, and that's just the equity piece. So if you add on the leverage, it's more than $120 billion of infrastructure investment taking place in the country in all parts, and we are seeing it visibly. I'm from Mumbai, and in Mumbai it's a complete sort of sea change.
Have you had the opportunity?
I haven't, because it just opened a couple of days back and 3 days ago, and I've not had the opportunity, but I certainly will as soon as I get
so
back.
you plan to take a joyride soon?
100%. It's an amazing feat. I saw it when it was under construction, and really amazing. And then if you look at what's happening with coastal road and metro and all of this, so it's a real renaissance taking place in terms of the infrastructure development, and it's a great opportunity. So we are looking at how can we participate in this revolution. One on infrastructure, one around the green ecosystem. What we think is that every piece of manufacturing capacity, whatever we've had, is either will transition or will need to be replaced. One of the two over time. Now, nobody believes that it's all happening in the next 5, 7, 10 years, but in the next 20 years, I think it's about a reasonable time frame to think that a lot of this is happening. And technologies are coming, and which are making it extremely competitive. Also, I mean, we're seeing it in solar power. I mean, it is cheaper today to make solar power than coal-based power. I mean, yes, albeit it's not 24 hours, but the sun is right there.
The sun does shine. One of the things on infrastructure, before I move to another topic, how critical has the change in policy, the approach towards infrastructure been? Because 10 years ago, litigation was the norm in infrastructure,
right,
and dozens of groups have burned their hands very, very badly with infrastructure. This time around, it seems to be very, very different. Is government policy a very critical enabler?
Massive enabler. So many of the things which people really got stuck up with, new policies which have come out by the government has actually changed. Whether it is land acquisition, which was a big issue, whether it was licenses, which were earlier given and now it has to be bid, whether it was just the way we approached infrastructure of basically starting things before we had all the approvals, and then getting stuck halfway. Ho jayega, it's a complete different mindset. And now if you think, the speed at which infrastructure is getting built in India, I mean, it's comparable to anywhere else in the world, probably faster. You just take the Trans Harbour Link. I mean, it's 4 years. Yes, couple of years because of COVID. But if you think about the speed at which this infrastructure would have got done, I mean, normally in Mumbai we would have said 10 saal nahi hoga, but it's ready.
Absolutely, and we've seen those.
And
stories.
The coastal road, it's just amazing what they're doing,
and we've seen those stories all across India.
And it's across India. I mean, national highways, metros all over. Delhi is a great example. So
absolutely, I also live close to a showpiece infrastructure, an expressway, the Yashobhumi, and
yes,
I've seen how it would have been, in fact, done faster had COVID not interrupted.
Exactly.
Let's come to one of your recent announcements in the state of Gujarat. It's a favored investment destination for all groups. 50,000 crore of plans. Where does all of that go? These MOUs, and how do you plan to fund those initiatives?
So, Siddharth, Gujarat has always been favored destination for the SR Group. Most of our investments over the last 2 decades has been in Gujarat, so no surprise there. But what we are basically trying to do is build a green molecule, green ammonia, green hydrogen facility, which can then get converted into different green molecules. But we are looking at it more as an export as opposed to domestic consumption. And again, as you probably know, we have a facility in the UK where we are supplying close to 16% of UK's fuel from our refinery there, and we are converting that into a energy transition hub where we are building hydrogen and decarbonizing the refinery. And then if we can add to that supply of green molecules as a biofuel or as in different forms, green ammonia, etc., then that becomes a very interesting play. So we are looking at it from that perspective. It's an interesting, very interesting opportunity. As you know, many groups have made significant investment in announcements around it, and the opportunity is there for everybody to prosper.
One of the other things that's drawn attention is your plan to invest $4 billion in Saudi Arabia. This is going to be a low carbon steel plant. The question that is being asked is, does that imply that you would look at steel in India as well?
Well, look, steel is obviously close to our heart, and we believe that the future, at least what we are seeing, is around green steel. and moving and pivoting away from fossil from CO2. Steel, as you know, is one of the most polluting industries from a CO2 perspective, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier, in the next decade, in the next 15 years, 20 years, there will be a need to transition, and so we are trying to see whether we can play a role in that space. And green steel is the future, which basically means utilizing solar power and hydrogen as energy source for steel making. It's a basic as compared to coal. So that's the basic difference. Coal and natural gas. So which are the traditional sources of fuel in steel making, right? So that's the play. We are obviously trying to develop this project in Saudi Arabia. It's not yet we're not fully yet ready there. We still have some approvals pending, but we are still trying to develop it. But we're looking at opportunities to see how we can play a role in this space.
As we wind down this conversation, I remember what you had said last year right here, and you sort of spoken about the fact that Essar, which did a lot of work in India, was now also looking at globally. So today, a year later, if I were to say what's going to be the mix of the Essar footprint, how much in India, how much overseas, how would you respond?
So it's a interesting question. I think we've always been, over the last, I think from 2010-12, we've become global in our outlook. So within the sectors, but global view. So today, I would say between 35 and 40% of what we do as Essar is in India and will remain so. And we believe heavily in the India story. And then the rest is overseas, because we've also made investments in the UK, we've made investments in the US, which obviously we want to develop along also, and so that's pretty much going to be the mix for now. But let's see if India moves, then maybe that will change.
And we will continue to track and monitor that change of the Essar Group. Prashant Ruia, thank you very much for your time with us today. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. We'll see you again. Until then, bye bye.
Lovely, Siddharth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.